Actually, I do know why it's so cool, and I'm gonna tell you. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Hexes and Horrors. Today, we're going to be talking about things that haven't changed in Salem since the 1990s. I like to just throw it in there. I have been visiting Salem for a very long time, since the 1990s to be specific. I don't know, I just feel like there's something very special to be said about having visited a place for that span of time and being able to kind of see it change and see it mold into something different and see, ultimately how it's changed since then, or like this video is about how it hasn't changed. So I think it'll be interesting just to look back and kind of see what is the same 30 years later. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about that has not changed in Salem since the 90s are some of its tours and attractions, starting with the Salem Witch Museum. The Salem Witch Museum, it's debatable whether or not it's a good attraction. I think if you're very new to the history of the Salem witch trials, then it's worth checking out. But there are other attractions in town that do the same job in explaining the witch trials history. I personally really just like it for the glowing red circle on the floor. I don't know why I think that's so cool. Actually, I do know why it's so cool, and I'm going to tell you. So when I first went to the Salem Witch Museum on my very, very first visit to Salem ever, I think I was 12 at the time. It was in 1997. And at the time in 1997, that glowing red circle on the ground in the Salem Witch Museum was actually a pentagram. And that's why I thought it was so cool. It is no longer a pentagram today. They have since changed that. And I think that's the only thing they've changed in the entire museum. So currently it's a red glowing circle with the names of the victims around the circle. It used to be the names of the victims around the circle, but there was a pentagram in the circle. Other than that, nothing has changed. The different scenes depicted around the room that light up in order as they tell the story are exactly the same. And the other room where they go over the history of witches in media and pop culture is also the same. They may have added a couple things just to keep updated with the decades towards the end of the room, but the same. I think a lot of people would agree with me in saying that the Witch Museum could really use an update, but I still think, like I said, it is worth checking out if you are new to witch trials history. I think anything is worth checking out once, and then you can make up your own mind about it. The next attraction that is pretty much the same is the Salem Witch Dungeon. This is another attraction that does a good job of just explaining the witch trials history to you. They have a live reenactment, and then you go downstairs into a recreation of the dungeon where accused witches would be held. It can actually be a little bit intense, and I like to give people that warning. There is actually an end scene where you do see mannequins hung. So it can be a lot for people, but nothing about that museum has really changed since the 90s. I think it's a great museum though, so that's not a complaint, but yeah, nothing's really different from 30 years ago there. House of the Seven Gables is my next one, and I don't really have an opinion on all of these attractions not changing over time, but this one, I feel like it's a really positive thing that it hasn't changed. I feel like every time I go to the House of the Seven Gables, I know exactly what to expect, and I kind of love that about it. I know exactly when the hidden staircase is coming. I know exactly what they're going to say right before they open the door to it. It's sort of predictable and nostalgic for me, and I really like that the tours have pretty much stayed the same 30 years later. One thing I wish hadn't changed is that in the 90s, they used to also have a nighttime tour, and it was supposed to be like a haunted tour where characters would act as actors would act as characters from the novel. So there were some kind of like ghost-like characters. It was supposed to be spooky. It was a really cool tour, and I took that one a couple different times as a teenager and then in college. And since I haven't seen that tour offered again in more recent years, they do have, of course, nighttime tours. To be honest, I'm not sure if that tour still exists. I would imagine it's one that they only run in October. And I haven't been to the House of the Seven Gables in October, I guess since I was in college. If anyone knows if that tour still exists, please let me know because I loved it and I would love to take it again. Another attraction that hasn't changed since the 90's is Cry Innocent. If you have not experienced Cry Innocent, I highly suggest and recommend it. And again, I kind of love that it hasn't changed. It's predictable, it's the same thing, you know what to expect, and it's a great attraction and experience. So Cry Innocent is when you'll reserve your tickets and then you meet at a point out on Essex Street, and all of a sudden these actors dressed in colonial garb are out in the street. They start arguing, pointing fingers, accusing someone of being a witch, and then they take it into the Salem Town Hall. At least that's where it was when I had done the tour. And they take you inside to a mock courtroom and you witness a mock trial of the witch trials. And it is audience participation, so you may get to participate in one of the mock trials. My last couple things are walking tours. I kind of love that there's a lot of the same companies running tours in Salem 30 years later, and a lot of good tour companies. I feel like Salem tours are a bit of a battleground between different tours and tour groups and tour guides, but I love to see that some of the same ones have stuck around since, like I said, 30 years ago and are still out there thriving. They're also just such staples of Salem. You're walking around enjoying your visit and you see a tour walking by or a night tour, and I don't know, you kind of just know exactly what those people are experiencing on the tour. Granted, you've taken a tour before, and again, it just, I don't know, it gives me some kind of nostalgia. I love to see tours going by. Just listen to like a little tidbit that the tour guide's giving. And the last thing and the most important thing that has not changed in Salem since the 90's is the thrill. I know that so many people know exactly what I'm talking about, where every time that you drive into Salem and you finally get there, it's just this wave of, I don't know what it's a wave of for you, but for me, it's a wave of relief, of happiness, again, of nostalgia, of just a really good feeling. Going back to a place that you visited as a child and now you're returning there and you get like all those good memories and serotonin flooding back. So it is for me returning to a place where I had really fun and great experiences and so many good feelings. So every time I return, I just get that really just really good feeling. I am also going to do a video on things that have changed since the 90's in Salem. That one's going to have a few more items on the list because clearly a lot has definitely changed, but I'm really glad to see that there are some things that have stayed exactly the same, because that's always nice to see in a world that is so quickly and constantly changing all the time. We love change, we love growth, but we also love a little consistency here and there. So thank you guys so much for watching me ramble. If anything I mentioned in this video resonates with you, do mention it in the comments. Don't mind the cars going by. I think my husband's home. Yes, he is. So perfect time to end this video because he's going to come upstairs making all kinds of noise. But I think we're gonna go watch a movie or something together. So thanks again for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked this video. Let me know what resonates with you in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that so you can keep up with my videos. I have a lot of Salem related videos, but also a lot of spooky locations and creepy things just all over the place. So I really hope to see you again and keep it spooky. Bye.